Yeah, so most commonly now, due to the internet and influencers, you're seeing cold baths.
Yeah.
Cold baths work, they reduce inflammation. However, that's a two-edged sword. If you're shooting for adaptations, we need some inflammation to be present. So, doing a cold bath when you're trying to get larger and stronger is not a great idea because the inflammation resulting from training is necessary to adapt from training. When you would want to use ice baths are during a congested season when you have multiple games during a week and you want to feel better. Do we care about maximizing muscle size and strength in between a 3 game week for an athlete? Absolutely not. We want them to recover, feel better, and to get rid of that inflammation so that they can execute at a high level later in the week. So, cold baths are situational from when you would need them. If it's in the deep off season, probably leave them out. It's okay to be sore. You want that inflammation to be there so that you can adapt to the stimulus. And they've shown that cold baths consistently over time reduce the remodeling process, which results in less muscle growth. And then the resultant outcome is less force production. You're not as strong. Emerging evidence is coming out about hot, so like hot tubs, the sauna, and heat shock proteins being more beneficial for recovery, but it has to be built up. You have to work that into it and do it consistently because initially it's a stressor. Then, as your body adapts in the first few weeks, it becomes less of a stress and then it can become a positive. But you can't just throw someone in the sauna and expect a good result. It has to be implemented in as you go
You
because
don't want
that
to
heat
start
shock,
sauna during the peak.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if you're going to use it, weightlifters use it all the time to cut weight, but they use it most of the year, so they're ready for it. You wouldn't just implement it at the end. So that would be like the exact opposite of the cold baths. You'd want to hold off on using those, whereas if you're using heat, you want to do it early and often to be used to it so that the stress is minimal on the athlete. Then you have things like what you got. You have massage being a recovery method. Um, Probably important for like muscle and tendon health and making the athlete subjectively feel better. Doesn't tend to show like short-term performance outcomes other than maybe helping the athlete relax, right? If it's a relaxing thing that could help. The evidence is pretty mixed on massage. What else is out there? Massage guns, pretty much like using a foam roller. Doesn't really do anything except short-term improvements. Um, what else am I missing? Compression gear doesn't seem to show very much promising outcomes as it relates to performance.
Yeah.
You can use them when you're traveling to prevent swelling in the limbs, but doesn't seem to be a major mover of performance. So, which
Well,
ones am I missing here?
one thing you see a lot, it was really kind of hit, probably it was like 8 years ago or something, but it was at the Olympics, and you saw it was one of the top swimmers, Lochte maybe, and he came with like the cupping bruises.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like before that was really a more popular thing, and everybody was like, "What the hell?" It looked like he'd been beaten with a stick,
Yep.
So like, is that something that cupping, acupuncture, those kind of things?
Acupuncture is placebo effect. It doesn't really do anything. Dry needling actually works because it's actually going into the muscle. And then cupping, it can make athletes subjectively feel better, but there's no performance outcome. So cupping, the mechanisms that they state that it's doing, it's not really necessarily doing it. So if the athlete feels better from doing it and it's not causing a negative, then I'm okay with them using the modality. So if acupuncture, they use it, it makes them feel better. Acupuncture is not going to make them worse.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
not going to do anything, but don't tell them that, because then it removes the placebo
Right.
effect when you tell
Yeah.
them it's not working.
Well, they
But
get
other
that.
things you wouldn't want them to do because it will make them worse. Like an ice bath will make them actively worse. Cupping, it's not going to make them worse. It'll just make them not look the best, but it's not going to harm their performance. So that's how I weigh out the pros and cons of recovery methods.
Yeah, to me, cupping and acupuncture kind of always fit that role of like you are required to lay down and relax for half an hour, and somebody's taking care of you, which both have big impacts, right? Like they're both things that show a outcome.
So I have
Compassion and Yeah, compassion and healing touch is a big impact on recovery, and it's likely that aspect is what's making them better, not the actual mechanism.
and we've talked about this before, like the act of going and paying for the cupping or whatever, like the act of taking your own free time and doing cupping is just yet another, and it might not be at your level because you're dealing with college athletes. They're already like dedicated to what they're doing, but more like at our level when we have like clientele, it's something other than the lifting that they're proving to themselves that I'm in.
Another level of
I'm
buy-in.
gonna train and I'm gonna go hard. Like, is there even a level for you? Let's say I had a client that doesn't really lift a whole lot. They're not necessarily worried about getting maximal level gains, but they do wake up and get in a cold tub every day, and that itself is like the one thing that gets them to move around. Like, could you see that being like, okay, if that's the thing that makes you feel tough inside and you're like, I started the day and I'm, you know what I mean, I'm gonna go to the gym, is there like the trade-off, like, all right, dude, it's not the smartest thing and you might lose a little bit on the
In
top
the long
end.
run, yeah.
But if that's what gets you to post your story on Instagram and you're out there and you're trying real hard, like, could you see that, Chris, like being a thing like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I even let them know, like, hey, we are missing some gains here, but if that's the thing that gets you there, again, if it's working, let's not break it, you know.